I'm Lucy Feldman, the books editor for Time, and I am thrilled to be talking about The Power of Fiction with the incredible Angie Thomas, the best-selling author of The Hate U Give and On the Come Up. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'd love to just start with how you're doing in this crazy, crazy time. What has all of this time with the pandemic and the movement for racial justice looked like for you?
I think for me, it has been sobering in a lot of ways, but also one thing that I've taken away during all of this is just how important self-care is in the midst of it. We can't fight for social justice. We can't fight for any of those things, equality or equity, unless we're taking care of ourselves. And so I'm finding ways to do that and finding ways to balance that. Is it frustrating? Oh, of course. It's super frustrating to know that it took the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor for so many people in this country to realize that the thing we've been yelling and screaming about for years is real, is happening, and we're not just making it up. We're not overreacting. It took all of these years for a big chunk of people to finally understand why we say Black Lives Matter. So that's at times that's frustrating, but I hold on to hope, and I'm finding ways to make myself heard and to tell the stories that I feel need to be told. And that's the main thing I can do. So it's about finding the balance right now for me. And I think that's what it's about for most of us.
We spoke about a year and a half ago, I think, and we were talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and you described how you feel like the leaders were doing amazing work, but the country was distracted and they weren't getting enough attention. Does this moment feel truly different?
It does, honestly. At first it seemed as if the words Black Lives Matter were so taboo. People were almost afraid to say it publicly. It was like, and to a degree, it still is. If you're saying it, people think you're making a political statement. But for me, I'm making a personal statement. When I say Black Lives Matter, I'm literally telling you that my life has value. Please remember that. But we're seeing it now to a degree. At times you wonder if this is the easy way out for people. It's easy to say Black Lives Matter, but it's harder to do the work. It's harder to back that up. It's easy for corporations, just like they do in Pride and Pride Month. It's easy for them to say all the right things and do what seems to be the right thing. But what are they really doing in this moment to help the movement go forward and to create actual change? And so I definitely feel like it's different. But now I want to see the result of that difference. I want to see some changes. I want to see some actual policy changes, and I want to see not just talk, but walk. So it'll be interesting to look back on this moment, let's say a year from now or 2 years from now, and see what it has actually done in the movement for social justice and in the movement of anti-racism.
Yeah. I've noticed that some young people have been marching with imagery from your books. What does it mean to you when you see that?
That is probably the biggest honor. I attended a protest right here in Mississippi in Jackson at our state capitol. And when I got there, one of the first things I saw were young people with signs that were made to resemble my book cover. They didn't know I would be there. I didn't know they would be there. And so when I saw it, I almost cried, because it showed me that they read my books and they felt so empowered that it stuck with them in a way that it's partially why they're there at that moment. So for me, I always say, if my legacy is I inspired the next generation of activists, then I'm happy with that. I will happily sit in a rocking chair in the nursing home and be like, maybe I did something all right, But it's an honor. It's an honor. Young people have so much power. And I think one thing we're seeing right now is them realizing that power. We've written them off so often, and we don't give them enough credit for the things that they do. But there are so many young activists who are making changes. There's so many young activists who are doing the work. And then there are young people we don't even know about who are out here doing things that can make a difference. We see it with the TikTok generation, we're calling them Zoomers now, but they are finding ways, and I respect them so much. And I'm honored to know that I can be a microphone for them. I never want to be a voice. I always want to be their microphone and amplify them even louder.
What have your interactions been like with your readers? Have you been receiving more notes these days, more social media posts? What's going on?
Oh yeah, I'm receiving more notes, more DMs, more tags on Instagram and stuff, more emails, more all of that. I've had a lot of young people who have just read my books for the first time, and my books help them to grasp what's happening in the real world. Or I've had young people who've read the books already, and they're like, Angie, this is your book coming to life. And I have to remind them, like, yeah, it was based on real life from the get-go, So they've definitely been letting me know that it's helping them. And for me, that's what it's all about. That's why I sat down and wrote those books. But more importantly, they tell me that it's empowering them. They see themselves, especially in Star, and even in Bree, they see themselves in Bree and how they can make themselves heard through even creative means. So I've had a lot of young rappers reach out to me, and they're like, Angie, check out this song I just did, inspired by the movement, check this out. I'm trying to be on my Bree tip. And I'm like, go for it. So,
I love that.
Yeah, so that's gotten me through so much of what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's incredible. So wonderful that you can receive that feedback and interact with your readers. I feel like they probably really need you right now.
Yeah. I'm happy to have that, to be that for them.
Since you brought up Bree, I think we just have to take a little moment to talk about your own rap career.
Or lack thereof.
Well, you were a budding teen rapper at one point. Tell me a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. For me, at the time, hip hop was a way to express myself. I loved writing when I was younger. I loved writing stories. But when it came to books as I got older, as I became a teenager, I just didn't see myself in books. So because I didn't see myself in books, I didn't think that somebody like me could write books. But where did I see stories being told? In hip hop. And that's how I felt that I could make myself heard. So I started writing raps. I started pursuing a rap career so that I could tell the stories of things that were happening around me and in my life, because I didn't think books were available to me. So that was just my way of expressing myself. And I credit that journey into hip hop, no matter how short-lived it was, I credit it for helping me become the writer I am now, because I learned that I can be my true, authentic self in my writing because of hip hop. One thing you can say about rappers is they don't hold back, and the best ones are truly authentic, and they are real and uncut and raw, and they will make you think and they will make you uncomfortable. And that's exactly what I want to do as a writer. So hip hop taught me that it was okay to do that through my craft, even though I eventually got away from the rapping part and I got back to the just storytelling part of it. So I often say I want to write the way that rappers rap.
This seems like a perfect transition to talk about your new book that you're working on. It's called Concrete Rose, coming in January, and it's a prequel to The Hate U Give. And you're following Star's father, Maverick. Mm-hmm. Your first two books felt so contemporary. I was just wondering, why go back in time? What made you want to do that?
Maverick is probably the character I get asked about the most. He's the one that so many people they're fascinated by him. And it's funny to me that the fan base he has is so wide. Like, I have kids who are like, I love Maverick. I wish my dad was like Maverick. And then I have the moms who are like, oh my God, Maverick. I love me some Maverick. I would marry me a Maverick. I'm like, okay. So, but I think the pull, the reason people are pulled to that character is because he's a man who, for all intents and purposes, if you just looked at him on paper, you would make so many assumptions. You may make so many assumptions about him, and he's the exact opposite of what people think he should be. We're talking about a guy who was once a drug dealer, who was once a gang member, and now he's this father, active father, you know, with his own little rough edges or whatever, and he's active in his community and he cares about his community and he's instilling all this wisdom into his kids. How did he go from what we know what we know that he used to be to now? So I wanted to explore that, and I have to give credit too to Russell Hornsby, who played Maverick in The Hate U Give film. I still think he was robbed. He should have gotten some nominations, but that's me. But his portrayal of Maverick and then the questions he asked me about the character while he was becoming Maverick really put this into motion for me. He made me think about my character in a different way. So I wanted to write this story to show how young people who we so often write off can get on the right track with the right people in their lives in the right direction. So Concrete Rose, January 21st, 2021. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited too. I want to talk a little more about the character because I've read that you sort of see Maverick as a symbol for George Floyd. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, honestly, I see Maverick as a symbol for most Black men. You know, George Floyd, I look at him and I look at how when he was killed, there were so many people who tried to justify his death because, oh, he wasn't perfect. He wasn't this, he wasn't that. And if you look at Maverick, if this were to happen to Maverick, people would probably bring up his past before they bring up the fact that he's a good father and he's a good human being, blah, blah, blah. We're so often people look for reasons to justify death in these cases. And so for me, Maverick, he represents so many of the young men we've lost in this Black Lives Matter movement. And the fact that they are so often written off. But he also represents the ones who are right around us every single day. The young Black male who walks by you and you pull your purse closer, that's a Maverick. You know, the one who, when he steps on the elevator with you, you're a bit uncomfortable, that's a Maverick. The one who you may see on the news because he did something he had no business doing and you're already like, he's a thug, he's not worth anything. That to me, that's a Maverick. So I wanted this character to represent those Black men who are so often written off and misjudged. And I wanted to speak to them themselves and tell them, I see you, I care about you, I love you.
It strikes me as kind of incredible that surely you started working on this book before this new wave of the movement arose. What has it been like to see the world change while you're writing?
It's been a lot. One thing that I can say is I feel blessed at times to write a book that's set in 1998, 1999, because it became an escape for me. You know, in 98, 99, the biggest thing Maverick is worried about as far as on a, you know, global level or social level is I hope the world doesn't end on New Year's Day 2000. You know, he's worried about Y2K. But also it's sobering to think about how things have not changed that much. We're talking about almost 20 years ago actually. And we're having discussions about police brutality. You know, we're still having these conversations. We're still talking about racism and all of these things and poverty and how they affect Black communities disproportionately. We're still having these same discussions. We still have these same issues 20 years gone by. And if you look back to 20 years from 1998, same thing. You know, if you look back 20 years from that, same thing. So it's disheartening to see how much hasn't changed. But for me, I want my young readers to look at that and to look at that time and to see, okay, this is how things were then. Yeah, and this is how things are now. But we have the opportunity to build something even better. It's very sobering to realize my young readers will not know what a beeper is or a Star or a Sega Genesis. A Sega Genesis. Like when my editor said, yeah, it's historical fiction. That was a dagger right in the heart.
I'm sorry, Angie. Forgive me. Oh, that's funny. You posted this tweet recently that I love. That was something like, thoughts and prayers to everyone writing realistic fiction set in 2020, which is so stark, funny, but stark. How do you feel like this time will impact your future work?
I've been thinking about that a lot. I was lucky because I'm writing a book set in the past. I could not imagine being in the middle of writing a book about 2020, set in 2020 as 2020 is happening. Because all of a sudden you're going to have things that just don't make sense now for this day, for this time. Like, I was saying, I had another tweet on Twitter where I was like, your next one true pairing in a young adult novel may end up having their first date on Zoom. Because this is the world we're living in now. And I couldn't imagine trying to adjust. So my heart goes out to writers who are doing fiction set in the now, because how can you do even a scene with a character getting on an airplane or going out to eat at a restaurant, or high schoolers going to high school, all of a sudden that it's not realistic now. And that's the world we're living in. So I've already thought ahead, though, of how I'm going to address it in my future works, because you can't get around it. If you do, you're just writing alternate stories, alternate contemporary, whatever. And that's not going to work. So as someone who wants to write for young people where they are right now, I have to make these adjustments for them in my future writing.
Tell me about the production company that you've started. What are you focusing on?
Yeah, at the moment, I am focusing on my own stories and finding ways to get them out there in different mediums. At the moment, I'm working on the Come Up film with Paramount and Temple Hill and State Street Productions. We're in a good place with that. Can't wait to make some good announcements soon. I'm excited about it. The film is happening. It's coming along beautifully. The script is amazing. We have a wonderful director on board, so I can't wait to be able to talk about all of that.
You don't want to tease anything right now? Drop any names?
I can't at the moment. I can't. Contracts got to be signed. We're waiting on the ink. We got to wait until the ink dries. So right. I'm learning that quickly about Hollywood. Don't say anything until the ink dries. But that's my first major project. But I'm also working on television projects. And I've recently got into commercials. I wrote the script for a commercial for the WNBA, which was an amazing opportunity. If you follow me on social, I love basketball. So when the opportunity fell into my lap, I went at it.
I know. That commercial was played in their opening night, right?
Yeah, that opening weekend. And I had no idea it was going to play then. And I was watching the first game of the season with my mom. And I heard my words on the screen, and we both started screaming. Like, it was a moment.
Looking at just how far you've come in the industry and all these exciting young writers coming up kind of in your footsteps, what makes you the most hopeful? What are you most hopeful for?
I am most hopeful for the multiple mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors that young people will be getting through books. We're starting to see changes in publishing. Do we still have a ways to go? Absolutely. But I'm starting to see all of the hard work paying off a bit. We're seeing more diverse books so that young people can see themselves or see people unlike themselves, so that they can get some empathy and some sympathy. So that's what I'm really hopeful for right now. I believe books play an important role in all of this. If some of our current political leaders read books about young people who were unlike them when they were kids, maybe we wouldn't have to say Black Lives Matter. It would be understood. If they read authentic tales of Latinx kids, maybe we wouldn't be talking about building walls but bridges. If they read authentic books about LGBTQIA young people, we wouldn't have to fight for rights. They would be a given. So I believe in the power of books in how they shape young people for the future. And I'm very hopeful that we're giving them better tools so that they can be better leaders than any of us ever imagined. So that's where my hope lies. It lies in young people, and it lies in the tools that we're giving them.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. Angie, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you so much.